Up Garage Racer, continuing our series, how much does it cost per year? And today we have the first X6 on our channel for review. Today we will find out how much it costs to maintain this X. And also we will drive it and interview the owner, who is a girl by the way. So grab some popcorn and let's go. Also, this X will be interesting because we know its service history from the time we bought it in Bavaria, and up to 125,000 kilometers of mileage. So you can actually see what to expect at 60,000 kilometers, at 100,000 kilometers, without any doubts about the mileage being rolled back or anything like that. The history of this X began in 2016. It was purchased in Bavaria by the first owner, who drove it up to 60,000 kilometers. And he sold it to the second owner, our current client. And since they know each other, everything that happened during the first 60,000 kilometers with this X is fully reliable. There are some service receipts. It was mostly just regular maintenance, meaning there were no breakdowns. The last service by the first owner was done right before the sale. Our current client bought the car, and the scheduled maintenance had just been completed. He thought he'd be driving the first 12,000 kilometers before the next oil change, but not quite. At 61,000 kilometers, the rear left tire got worn out and started losing pressure. So he went to Bavaria and they replaced it there. At Bavaria, of course, you can't show up with your own parts, aftermarket alternatives, or anything like that. You're required to buy original parts from Bavaria. That's why the price ended up being quite high, $420. After that, the owner did manage to drive his planned 12,000 kilometers, reaching 71,000. And he came to us for a maintenance service. That's when he first got to know us. We were still in our previous garage base back then. We replaced all the filters, changed the brake fluid, and carried out a suspension diagnostics. That all came out to around 7,200 hryvnias, roughly $270. Then at 75,000 kilometers, the front brakes wore out. We replaced both brake discs, the pads, and the brake pad wear sensor. That cost around 8,000 hryvnias, which is roughly $300. This X gets its maintenance regularly, every 12,000 kilometers. So at 84,000 kilometers, the owner came back again for another maintenance service. This time, we didn't replace the fuel filter or the cabin recirculation filter. For those who didn't know, in the F15s and E70s, usually there are two cabin filters, one under the hood and one under the glove box. Many people don't even know there's a filter under the glove box. Once an E70 came to us and it looked like the filter under the glove box had probably never been changed in its entire life. What came out of there was basically just dust and crumbs. This small maintenance visit cost 3,200 hryvnias. That's about $120. By the way, the price is about the same as an F30 maintenance service. So it's not really more expensive. After another 10,000 kilometers, it was time for the next maintenance, but another problem came up. That is, the second air suspension bag at the rear. So the right air suspension bag started leaking and the car began to sag. One morning the owner came and the car was slightly leaning. We did a quick diagnosis and ran some tests. That cost about $30. These were just diagnostic tests before the main visit for the air suspension bag replacement. That is added. Next came the main visit at 90,000 kilometers. We replaced the right rear air suspension bag. We also noticed a leak from the differential seal. We removed the differential, replaced two seals, and reinstalled it. We also performed a comprehensive maintenance service at around 90 to 100,000 kilometers for the all-wheel drive system. That included changing the oil in both the front and rear differentials. We changed the oil in the transfer case and the automatic transmission. So, we usually recommend changing the oil in these components, as well as the automatic transmission fluid, at 100,000 kilometers for all-wheel drive vehicles. The replacement of the air suspension bag, seals, and comprehensive fluid maintenance cost the owner more than 17,000 hryvnias. That's roughly $642. At 96,000 kilometers, another maintenance service was done, along with engine preventive care, including replacing all the glow plugs. This is recommended as preventive maintenance to avoid having to unscrew them years later when they might break off, which can be very expensive to fix. In fact, one glow plug was already hard to turn. We tried to loosen it, and eventually it came out. All of this cost 12,800 hryvnias, or $475. Then, at 108,000 kilometers, another maintenance service was done. All filters were replaced except the fuel filter. The cost for that was about 400 hryvnias, or $170. Then, at 117,000 kilometers, the owner went to the dealership for a technical campaign to check the EGR system. The EGR system can fail, sometimes it can ignite, and generally, it needs to be replaced. with a new one free of charge. The checks were done at no cost to the owner. But we'll mention it for you. And as usual, at 119,000 kilometers, another maintenance service was done. All filters were replaced, as well as the rear brake discs and pads. It all cost roughly 13,000 plus hryvnias, about $500. Currently, the car has 125,000 kilometers on the odometer. Since the last visit, nothing else has been done. Now let's move on to summing everything up and drawing conclusions about all these expenses. It's also worth mentioning that over these 2.5 years, the owner bought 2 sets of tires, one summer, one winter. Each set cost about 7,000 hryvnias. One full set was roughly 28,000 hryvnias. So 2 sets come to 56,000 hryvnias. And in total, that amounts to roughly $2,075. In the previous video about servicing the E70, viewers commented asking to break down all the expenses into logical categories. We've known this for a while, and now we've decided to apply that approach in this video. Now we'll show you 3 columns. The first one will be maintenance services, that means regular upkeep, not repairs or tuning. The second column will cover expenses related specifically to breakdowns. And the third column will include various tuning and upgrades and possibly the tire purchases as well. The total expenses we've mentioned add up to roughly 137,000 hryvnias, about $3,266. Now let's break down this total into 3 parts. The first column is maintenance services. We spent 56,500 hryvnias on maintenance, which is about $3,075. The second column is repairs. As you remember, these were related to replacing 2 air suspension bags, one done officially, the other with us. By the way, the cost difference was about twice as much. And the replacement of 2 differential seals. For that, the differential had to be removed. That's according to the manual, so the costs were a bit higher because of that. In total, all these repairs cost 25,000 hryvnias, which is about $900. Next, the third column covers tuning and equipment. In this case, the purchase of 2 sets of tires. Since this may or may not apply to you over 2 years, maybe you already bought the car with tires. In this case, the owner bought 2 sets of tires, which cost about 56,000 hryvnias. That's $2,075. So we have these 3 columns. Let's analyze it. Maintenance costs were about twice as high as repairs. Essentially, there weren't many repairs at this mileage, but tire expenses matched the maintenance costs. So tires are a very important factor in our overall calculations. It's up to you whether to include tires in your maintenance and total ownership costs or not. Now let's summarize the results, starting without including tires. In total, maintenance and repairs cost us 81,500 hryvnias, which is about $3,020. If you divide that by 65,000 kilometers, it comes out to $0.046. That's about 4.5 cents. By the way, this is comparable to the expenses for the F10. Less than the previous E70 and roughly the same as the F30. So see, it's not such a big amount. Without including tires, it's quite manageable. Now, let's now take a look at the tire costs. By the way, if you divide that by 2.5 years, $3,020 over 2.5 years comes out to roughly $1,200 per year. That's kind of cool. That's like the F10 and F30. The engine is showing its age, by the way. Notice there wasn't a single breakdown, only the glow plugs were replaced as preventive maintenance. Next, the calculation including tires. Tires definitely throw the numbers off a bit. Including tires, our total expenses come to 137,500 hryvnias. That's roughly $5,100. If you divide that by 65,000 kilometers, it comes out to $0.078. That is 7.8 cents per kilometer. So this is already more expensive than the E70 and more than the F10 and F30. Well, if you divide that by 2.5 years, it comes out to $2,037 per year. So for an F16 F6, that's not too much, even with the tires included. Now, what conclusions can we draw? For a relatively new car like this, about 2/3 of the expenses, excluding tires, are maintenance services. 1/3 are repairs. And the repairs might not have been necessary if it weren't for the air suspension on this XE. I mean, we've had cases more than once that on the F15s, even from America, with 50,000 kilometers of mileage, the airbags were already damaged. And it's kind of normal that between 50,000 and 100 you can replace 2 airbags at once. And the quite expected conclusion is that a newer car costs a lot less money per year than, for example, old school cars like the E46 you can check on our channel. The yearly costs are just not comparable to this car. There, a bigger percentage of expenses goes exactly on repairs, less on maintenance. But here it's mostly stable maintenance without unexpected repairs. But as operator Sergey tells me, such a car loses more in value, meaning depreciation over a few years of ownership, than some old E46. It's also worth mentioning the popular 3-liter diesel Nikolai 57. By the way, we have a video on the channel about its reliability. You can watch it. Here, as we see, at 125,000 kilometers, it didn't bring any surprises or sudden issues. Scheduled maintenance was done. Spark plug maintenance and replacement. Also, we recommend at this mileage to remove the intake, check how clogged it is, and if needed, clean it, then put it back. And we think it can easily run 250,000 without any breakdowns or worries. Also, there are not many diesel alternatives to this engine for the X models because the M57 is no longer installed in F bodies as it is the only 3-liter diesel. There are also 4.0 and 5.0 versions, but it's the same diesel with more turbochargers. For reliability, it is recommended to buy the 3-liter diesel as it is less stressed than the 4.0 and 5.0 versions.
Whoops. The control light, by the way, is activated. That's it, we've got hundreds.
Check it out.
X6 was never my dream car. My husband, my sister, and many of my friends had this car as a dream, and it was on their vision board.
Well, Cyril said he was like,
Yes.
so it was his dream, he kind of shut it
It
down.
was his dream. We talked about it a lot, standing on the balcony in Odessa, looking at the sea. I asked, what do you dream about? He said, I don't know. Well, about what? About what car? X6. Why? He says, well, the X6, it's the ultimate, it's the best. For me, a car has always just been a car, but this one...
At that moment, the next G06 hadn't come out yet.
The car?
But-
Yes, it was a long time ago, probably about 7 years ago, so yeah, it was a very long time ago.
It was the latest body style, and he probably liked the way it looked more than the X5.
But he never considered the X5. Basically, the X6 is probably not so much about... It's not about the radio. The X6 is about emotions, about what you get. Sitting in this seat, feeling this leather, this steering wheel, feeling the dynamics when you press the gas pedal. You just take off slightly along this runway, along this road.
Less like a suitcase, so to speak, but that's just for me.
Agreed, less like a suitcase.
It's like a coupe, just higher up or very tall. Well, if you speak so highly of the X6, what did you drive before that?
I was a fan of Mazdas. I had 2 Mazdas. The CX-7 was more similar to the X6. It was also very sporty and cool. And I really liked it. As they say now, it was my car. I felt it. It was basically the first car in my life that I carefully chose and connected with.
It's understandable. It's understandable. I wondered how Mazda could appeal to me, but if it was the first one, then it makes sense.
After that, there was the second Mazda, so you see, I really liked that brand of cars. Well,
Well, now you've driven 30,000 kilometers.
as they say in Odessa, that's 2 big differences. Yes, it's incomparable comfort, convenience. Again, speed, quickness, it handles the road much better than that Mazda, especially at speed in corners. For me, that's something I really feel on the highway. I usually drive pretty fast, 140, 160. On our roads, entering a corner has always been kind of like... Yes, it doesn't skid, it's very stable, handles corners well, brakes well, accelerates perfectly. That's why it's much easier and more comfortable for me on the highway in this car.
Next, if you were to choose a car, which one would you pick? Would you consider Mazda or not?
But you know, I think that after the X6, basically there's nowhere else to look. That's probably a big downside of this brand, because after that you don't know where else to look. There's only the X6 and that's it. Well, I mean BMW and beyond.
There's
well,
Bentley and stuff like that. That's the
that's
level.
pompous. It's a completely different category.
So Mazda is out. The next car won't be a Mazda.
The next car will be a BMW X6, just a new model.
That's the 06. If I were buying something for my wife, I would think, damn, she'll get stressed. She'll dent the bumper, dent the lip. Better let it be something tall so it can handle those curbs better.
Probably when a car is tall, for me that's the key, it's a tall car. How did I choose a car? A tall car and that key.
So that's it. A car that can go up a ramp,
Yeah, even
basically.
here there's a problem with parking. You always have to think about how to park, where to drive in. Well, just drive up onto the curb and that's it. You don't.
There's a question, I think, from the subscribers. There's a question that I think will be interesting for the followers. Usually, in my understanding, the X6 is a car for some guy, like a dude who wants to fly, you know, fast and stormy. And what's it like when a woman is behind the wheel? How do other drivers react? Maybe compared to after driving a Mazda?
Do they let you through or not? Do people honk maybe? I don't know. Any kind of bullies or funny situations?
I think they don't honk at me because I'm in an X6, but probably they honk because I'm a woman. But of course, I really want to believe it's because of the car. Well, I wouldn't say that drivers' attitudes have changed drastically, no. But one thing for sure, yes, they give way. I mean, they try not to come too close. After all, it's an expensive car. Better to go around it somehow. I've noticed that on highways, cars often tailgate and follow behind me, especially men. I don't know why they think that. Probably they assume there's some guy behind the wheel, like you said, someone who loves fast driving.
That it's optimal to drive behind
Yes,
him.
it's optimal to drive behind him. He knows where the cameras are, and if anything, he'll get caught by them.
I'm curious, for example, yesterday you drove a Mazda, and today you switch.
She switched?
Today you switch to the X6 and you're driving in traffic, say a jam, you're in your lane and want to move to the right or left, you put on your turn signal. Did anything change? Do other drivers suddenly let you in or not?
You know, it's hard for me to say what other drivers think. It seems to me the car brand doesn't really affect whether they let you in or not. It's more about how you behave. If you ask politely, open the window, show a please, they'll let you through. Or if you use your turn signal or something else. Here, the brand, in my opinion, isn't the main thing to show.
Got it. That's strange. I expected already. Like, I thought, damn, I'm in an X6. That's why they let me through.
If I'm driving some Mitsubishi or an X6, there might be cases where they're less likely to let me through because I'm in a cool car, so alright, you can wait.
So you mentioned the pros, how great it is to drive on the highway, how it handles and how it feels. But what are the drawbacks? Since you've already driven 30,000 kilometers, in the last stretch, something must have clearly stood out to you.
What my model doesn't have, as I've already understood, but other models do, is the keyless entry. Did I say that right? Keyless access. Exactly that. When the key is in your pocket and you just walk, believe me, for a woman, that's so important.
You approach the car, take out the key and press unlock, right?
I approach the car. I don't take out. Now I take out the key. Have to find it. Turn it on. Keep it somewhere nearby all the time. Usually the key lies somewhere deep inside the bag, and that's definitely a problem. Okay, what else was there? I had a case when the tire pressure sensor didn't work for me. And I heard that my tire was already flat from the alert. Well,
How do you do it?
basically,
Well, the handling is great. For example, I also like the interior.
about the interior.
Yeah, I like everything.
Look at this interior.
I don't like it.
I often travel abroad and there I rent a car, so
Do you have anything to
yes, I
compare
have
it with?
something to compare it with. I also never had something like where it really hooked me, where I
Kind of
thought,
feature.
oh, that would
Yes.
be great if they promised that. It was in a BMW.
How are the dynamics? It's got a 3-liter diesel, by the way, and 57.
And the performance is great. Honestly, I've never gone over 190, even though here I see.
But performance is less about top speed, more about acceleration.
The acceleration is great. That's definitely. It's very.
Can you step on it for a second?
I don't want to step on it just to watch.
For a second? Just floor the gas for a second.
Come on. All right, enough. There's something Your receiver just flew off.
I think you liked our improvements to the segment How Much Does It Cost Per Year? Now, it's not just a boring list of expenses from drives, it's structured information with conclusions and analysis categorized by logical spending types. Feel free to share any suggestions you have for this segment, and we've started filming some cool videos just for you, so check out our Instagram and follow us there. We post interesting videos every day. Next up is an exciting episode about the M4, and we'll also be filming a review of the G20. Compared to the F30, the American choke. So hit the like button, grab some popcorn, and stay tuned for our videos.